Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at Horus Rising, the first book in the Horus Heresy books. This is a book for the 40k Warhammer universe that is a grimdark, futuristic sci-fi story. One of the things I'm actually not going to necessarily talk about the actual content of the story or anything like that, but this is something that we're going to take a look and see how our writing can influence our stories in a non-narrative way. Particularly what I'm talking about is when we input our own personal views into the story in a way that is incongruent or doesn't flow with the rest of the narrative. The idea here is not necessarily to say that this is wrong or that you shouldn't be doing this, but rather a way of opening up our eyes to make sure that we aren't doing this if this is not something that we want to do. Now, I'll get into it and we'll take a look at how you see this in the Horus Rising book. But there are a number of different books and stories that I've actually read this and seen this type of thing before that I probably will be mentioning. This is going to be a shorter video because this is, again, the holiday season. I just wanted to give you a perspective on how we can discuss this type of influence into our stories. The writer's fingerprint. What I'm talking about here is actually less to do with the voice of the writer, but more of the things that we see in the story that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the plot or narrative. These are elements that are not necessarily world building, but have an impact on how the story is told and create a window into the writer's perspective. So let's get into it. The greatest, intellectually, has been our casting off that heavy mantle called religion. Religion damned our species for thousands of years, from the lowest superstition to the highest conclaves of spiritual faith. It drove us to madness, to war, to murder. It hung upon us like a disease, like a shackled ball. I'll tell you what religion was. No, you tell me. You, there. Ignorance, sir. Basically, what he's trying to do, that the writer's trying to do, is actually indicate, it's telling the reader that anybody who believes in religion, as we understand it, is actually a ignorant person. As a Christian, I have my own perspective on religion, and I have gone over a number of different times the beneficial aspects of religion, even if it isn't the religion that I have. Primarily what we're talking about is that how religion actually is a force for good in the fact that it allows people who have no similarities to actually coexist without murder. This is seen throughout the archaeological and anthropological histories that we have found. Religion is one of those things, and while I don't necessarily agree that all religions are the same, religion has had a beneficial aspect to how we live our lives. If we take the positive aspects of religion, the idea of faith in something else, something beyond ourselves, having a connection to each other, having a religion that actually brings us to the highest value that we have in ourselves, the highest form that we could reach, religion is what encourages that. But what the writer's talking about here is actually saying that all of that is not the case, that religion only is a detriment and a weight on human society that we can actually cast off, and we are good to cast off. The greatest thing mankind ever did was reinvent itself as a secular culture. Again, the reason I'm talking about this mostly has to do with the fact that when we take certain aspects of society and we actually denigrate it as some sort of foolish notion, we undercut the ideas that underlie and have reasons to be there. It's just not because somebody was stupid that things happened the way that they did. It's usually because people had a process that they were living with, and this is how it came about. It's really foolish for us as writers to try to paint over a large amount of people with the paint of ignorance because we disagree with how they live. The true purpose of mankind is to bear the torch of truth aloft and shine it, even into the darkest places, to share our forensic, unforgiving, liberating understanding with the dimmest reaches of the cosmos, to emancipate those shackled in ignorance. Going back to what he's talking about earlier, when they're talking about ignorance, he's talking about religion. The idea here is that they are wrestling with truth. They're wrestling with how do we know what the true purpose of mankind, and it is to show truth. The problem is that when you remove truth from any sort of grounded perspective, it becomes a kite. It can take you wherever you want to go. This was written in 2006, so the idea of truth can be one owned experience was not necessarily something that was actually thought about But as we've moved beyond that as a mindset, as we move beyond truth as being something that's good, we have gone to truth is whatever I deem it to be the case. The problem is that if everybody has the truth, nobody has the truth. This is something that we need to make sure that we're keeping in mind when we're telling our stories, that we aren't unmooring ourselves from reality. What they're talking about here is truth as a perspective, but doesn't give any sort of anchor for what that truth is based on. We are mighty because we are right, Greville. We are not right because we are mighty. Vile the hour when that reversal becomes our credo. Basically, all he's saying here is that we are right, and the reason we know we are right is because we're strong. You only have to think about that for 5 minutes to see that there is no basis, no anchor in reality here. To say that we are right because we are strong makes no sense. There's a passage earlier where it talks about one of the downsides of trying to create a baseless and unanchored moral philosophy is that it makes it really difficult for the reader to actually connect with. Now, this might be my own experience, but when I see stuff like this, my mind automatically starts to think about and not take it at face value, but understand what are they trying to say. That the only thing that matters is that we are strong. We know we are right because we are strong. Well, anybody can actually lift weights and become strong. If their motivations are selfish, then their product that they're going to be making, their truth, as the book is talking about, that's not going to be good. That's going to be selfish. That's going to be vile. But what the book is telling about, and specifically the writer, because this has nothing to do with the story. There's not a lot to do with the actual plot. This is just a way of philosophizing from the writer. A weapon doesn't think who it kills or why. That isn't the point of weapons. One of the downsides of not understanding morality when it comes to combat is that you have this very narrow, very two-dimensional perspective on what combat actually is. One of the downsides of a mindset like this is that there is a moral obligation of the soldiery to actually push back when the rules or when there is an immoral action that's about to take place. When we talk about a weapon doesn't question that it kills, what we're talking about here is actually removing any sort of moral judgment from the people who are actually fighting the war. The problem is that is a very two-dimensional perspective, and actually, based off of everything we know about war, is actually a foolish one, because if there's no thought in what's going on, if we have no ability to question, no ability to think about the processes, we are actually doomed for death as a conflict, and we actually cause more problems. What we're saying here is that the weapon doesn't question who it kills. What they are saying here is that the person on the ground has less moral agency than the person ordering the command to kill. And this is something that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about having soldiers who are fighting and dying. They have to have moral agency. They can't just toss that moral agency out because it's inconvenient. What you are saying is that there are people who are higher ranked in a moral understanding of reality. Therefore, they have the ability to say who should be killed and who shouldn't be, what should be done and what shouldn't be done. These are all falsehoods. These are all philosophical faults. There's nothing here. There's nothing of value because this isn't reality. The reality is that people are selfish. People are not going to be acting in a moral, just way just because they have to or they can. They're going to do whatever they can to get what they want out of it. Nothing and nobody is exempt from this. So these are just a few ideas and thoughts that I had. This is mostly for myself, but I just wanted to share it with you guys. As always, I will be linking all the resources I use in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave it in the comment section below. Until next time, bye.
I am a poor, wayfaring stranger. I'm traveling through this world of woe, yet there's no sickness, toil, nor danger in that bright land to which I go.